optimize for what is right for the short term. And what is right for the short term is hardly ever right for the long term. Like a lot of people, right, I thought that money can buy you happiness, but it doesn't, I think money really complicates life. If I've said, there's no competition, everything is okay in life, what do I get up tomorrow morning and do, right? I think it's much harder to keep the money than to make the money. People who come to you for money, I think go away for more money.
Let's start. I have done a lot of research because we all know a lot about you. There was something that you've said in 2016 at TechSparks only. Do not chase money. Let it float towards you. But Nithin, to a middle class India, to most of us who have not seen money, and that kind of money which we read in papers and headlines everyone else is getting, how do you get into that state? Because most of us worry about money. Most of us spend so many hours of our lives thinking how to get money. How do you get into that state? Because I've seen you, from whatever I've seen you, you've not fretted over money.
Yeah, but that's come out of experience, actually. So I used to trade the markets in my previous avatar. So I traded for 12 years. And so when I started trading, I had all rupee goals in my mind. I need a sports car, I need this watch, I need whatever, right? As in, my room was full of these posters. But every time I kept a rupee goal, I faltered. I kind of lost money because I was trying to be too aggressive, or I was trying to optimize to make money. And I've realized with experience that the decisions you take to optimize to make money isn't always really right for the business, right? As in, because when we think money, we all want to make money quickly, right? So we are all thinking of making money quickly, which is, you're trying to optimize for what is right for the short term. And what is right for the short term is hardly ever right for the long term, So I think one of those decision frameworks in my mind is that I never think short term. I'm always saying, will this work for the next 3, 4, 5 years? Because even in trading, right, I keep talking about it, saying that trading is one of the hardest ways to make money in the life. A lot of people think it's very easy to make money trading in the markets, but it's actually one of the toughest ways to make easy money in life. And the reason for that is because if you make money the wrong way, you lose it back very quickly. You can't hold the money. And one is making money, and second is you want to sit on that money, right? As in, you don't want to give it away, right? So, and that is, I learned that out of experience. I've blown up 2, 3 times in my life, and one of the blow up was so big that I was in trouble for 3, 4 years after that. So, it's learned the hard way, but I think that kind of flowed into the business when I started, and yeah, so the idea was to get up every day and get better at whatever you're doing in life, and then know that if you keep getting better, at some point of time, the odds of luck hitting you increases. If you get lucky, then money can happen, right? As in, to make money, I think the secret sauce is luck, right? And the way to get lucky is to survive long enough to get lucky. As in, there is it's just simple maths, right? So. That's how I've thought about it, and yeah, thankfully, I've stuck through those philosophies through the last 12 years of Zerodha.
It's a very silly question, but did you get all the posters that you had, all the things that you wished?
I did. I did, but I quickly lost interest because I realized that if you have a Rolex, you have an Audemars Piguet, you have Audemars Piguet with Richard Mille, you have. So there is no end to it, right? As in, so I've let go of all my watches. I think my Apple Watch just an amazing job. I don't think I'm going back to any timepiece, as they call. As in, the same thing with vehicles and cars and all of that. I think, I like a lot of people, right? I thought that money can buy you happiness, but it doesn't. I think money really complicates life. You get too many choices. You get into this whole. It's like a menu where you can, you have 1,000 items on the menu, right? Doesn't. I'd rather go to a restaurant where there are 4 items, 5 items. I select, and it's easy to select, right? But if you have too much money, I think the problem also is,
Yeah.
you have this decision paralysis, right? As in, what do I buy? Like, because you can potentially buy anything you want, right? As in, like a lot of, I meet a lot of entrepreneurs, and usually the question is, I'm going through tough times. Is the grass greener on the other side, right? As in, somehow, I hit it, and then, somehow life becomes very easy, and all my decisions and problems go away. But I think I actually enjoyed Zerodha a lot more. I mean, my life a lot more building Zerodha than post success of Zerodha, because this whole money has brought obligations. Like, you're being watched. Everything you do gets analyzed. Everything you say gets analyzed. I mean, I had a lot more fun building the business the first 5-6 years when it was, it seemed hard at that point of time, but I think that was more enjoyable. So for everyone who's starting off building, I think treasure this moment, because you won't get it back, if you kind of get lucky and hit it in life. So.
I agree with you, because I want to re-emphasize for everyone, he to definitely has money, and money with such amazing value. Honestly, I'm a huge fan. I don't have money, but one of the things I realized, I come from Bihar, and I was always chasing money, because, and I've talked about it, because you get, dowry hai, ye wo hai. So I wanted to be very Atmanirbhar. And when I got the money, I started working, making good salary. Then my mother got hospitalized, and she passed away. And no money. I tried to, whatever, I had this great pride, I'm earning good salary and I can take care of her, but I just couldn't. And that time, very early on, 12 years back, I realized that money just can't do this. So you're hearing from all the spectrum, because we suffer so much thinking about money.
Yeah, but the problem with this money is, once you've made money and you say you don't need money, then, it's borderline hypocrisy, right? As in, so, I mean, so I kind of shy away saying this, because it is hypocrisy to say it now, but yeah, it is food for thought. As in, I think money doesn't solve any problems. It just complicates it. It personally, for me, it's just complicated my life a lot more. And
but I think you'll be a guy who would simplify things. So coming to this question, and I want to ask this because all of us come from very different backgrounds, Nithin, and in this book, this famous book which we all were prescribed to read, The Psychology of Money, there's this study where they find that, our appetite to take risks with money comes from the background, the family background, the upbringing that we come from. And that can't change. मतलब जो सीखे हैं माँ बाप जो सिखाए हैं जिस environment में है, that's the risk that we can take. I want to ask you, is that a limitation, or can you change your risk appetite?
Yeah, no, I mean, you're absolutely right. And one of the reasons I'm very excited for the future for India is because of, people like us. We're going to go talk at our homes about entrepreneurship and money and etc. Right? Because the younger generation will be more clued in terms of taking risks. It is a problem. I think one of the ways, one of those top list of things to do on my list is really, how do we introduce, like finance and something about money in colleges and schools, right? And I keep peddling this idea wherever I get an opportunity. As in, like, I was just joking about it. So, like, I know why I know that the circumference of the circle is 2 pi r. I don't know why I know it. Right? I've never ever used this in my life, right? As in, like, but instinctively I know it is that. And that's because somewhere fundamentally, that concept has been ingrained in me somewhere in school, right? And so I think this whole risk-taking, compounding, why saving is important. Why investment is important. I think some of these basic fundamental concepts, I think, have to be really taught in school and colleges. Otherwise, what happens is, today, how it works is, most of us, we finish our college, we come out, and we try to figure what we should do with our money by talking to our friends and family, and then you kind of, once you have the money, you are now influenced by the bias of greed and fear, right? So the learning curve is quite steep of sorts, in the sense, once you're, under the influence of greed and fear, it's harder to learn than when you have no money on the table. Right, so we've been trying hard to we've built a varsity certification. Our education initiative called as Varsity. So we built a certification program. It's free of cost. We're not trying to make a buck out of this, and we're trying to introduce this in colleges, saying college kids are like always constantly wanting some certificate. So we're trying to see if we can use the certification as an excuse to trigger them to learn something about money, but. It's very hard to change it afterwards. I mean, if you're 26, 27, and you've thought of money a certain way through your life, suddenly at 27, 28, 29, to think of money differently is very hard. So like, I think one of the reasons I got very lucky here was that I started trading the markets, and I think trading the markets, running the business is very similar. Like a lot of people think trading is trading stocks, but I think of trading as trading your time, right? I mean, you're kind of wherever you have the highest return, potential return on your time is where you put your time and effort, right? As in, trading is that, So when someone asked me, Nithin, why did you stop trading? I mean, because I thought Zerodha can be the biggest trade of my life, right? As in, so Zerodha is a trade for me, So I think that has to happen a lot more in India, because when I speak to my friends and colleagues in the US, culturally people think about risk, money, etc. much early in life, and that's why there are so many businesses that have come through in the last 30, 40 years, and that's why the country has done so well. And I think we need that to happen. And like your story, TechSparks. I mean, you need good storytelling as well. You need to inspire people to be becoming entrepreneurs. As in, eventually, if India has to become wealthy and inclusively, the only way is entrepreneurship. So and to do entrepreneurship, I think you need to start appreciating risks and rewards, and because that decision framework is really important. As in, about you have to take bets every day as an entrepreneur. So it's so I think it's very important.
I have to ask you this other question is that, see, all of us are very aspirational, and we want to have a good life. We want to have the best of everything, and our self-worth comes with our ability to have the best of everything. Whatever we want, we should be able to have. In this pursuit, there is never enough, because there's no word like enough, because you're constantly wanting and constantly evaluating your own self, that am I having all that I want, or what my neighbors have, what my batchmates have, what my colleagues have. And maybe Chake, we are living in an environment where we are seeing everyone having different things. I want to ask you, how do you cultivate this thing that this is enough? Is there something like that?
Yeah, I mean, just to throw in social media into that, right? Because suddenly, you on your social media, you just see everyone enjoying all the time. So it just complicates life. I think, yeah. So, I think enough is a state of mind. So I don't think there is ever enough, because I know some really, really rich friends, and who think they're not rich. So, and I'm like, dude, what are you smoking? So, so there is always something else to buy. So. I think it's like, I think people need to read about philosophy, etc. I mean, I don't know. It has to come from within. Me telling something here, I don't think will trigger someone to say, you know what, I have enough, right? I think it's it is a self-discovery process, I think, and I kind of hit that point maybe like in 2015, 16. When Zerodha kind of got to a level where I knew that it'll survive. I mean, I don't have to worry about what will happen over the next 1, 2, 3 years. So it once the business got to that stage, and I was quite content in my life. But I don't know. I mean, it's a really hard question, saying how do we
think this is enough?
They think this is enough. I mean, humankind is actually like a weird species. I mean, we've been ruining the planet constantly for the last many years. So, and we always want more. So it's you have to fight, yourself to feel that this is enough. But it's very hard. I don't know if there is a right answer. I was very lucky to hit that point some time back. But life is a lot more beautiful, and fulfilling, and whatever you're doing, you enjoy a lot more. If you get to the stage of saying, what I have is enough. I mean, yeah. So I mean, I almost now sound like a Guruji, but yes.
No, thank you. Seneca, the Stoic, had this practice of walking on the street in one very simple cloth and pretending and living a life that he has no money. And he used to walk and beg so that that ego doesn't come in, which naturally comes when the money comes in. And I'm also going to little bit take this that, I was talking about 13 years. I don't want to say all, but I've seen so many people raise large sum of money. And I see a change. Something changes when you get a lot of money, and that's why I absolutely respect you, because you haven't changed. But how do you build that kind of detachment, especially when I constantly go back to when you don't have that money?
No, I think it goes to the same thing again, right? How did you make that money? If you made that money um, in a wrong way, I don't know. I shouldn't be saying it wrong way, but if you think valuation is money, I don't think that's money, right? So valuation is an obligation. Taking money from someone to build a business is an obligation that you're taking, right? As in, it's not money that you're getting. And I think I see a lot of entrepreneurs mistake. Suddenly, getting a valuation and thinking that that's really their money. Even internally at Zerodha, the way we think about valuation is the money in the bank. In the sense, like if someone would ask me, Nithin, what's your net worth? I say, what's in the bank? I'm not going to take some notional, like valuation someone ascribes to Zerodha and, in my head think that that's my valuation, right? So let's be honest, in last 10 years, has been like rosy times for startups across the world. I think the world is changing because we were in a low interest rate cycle, which is turned around, and I don't see how it's going back low very soon. In a cycle where money was available so freely, valuations, it almost suddenly felt like you could build a large business in very quick time. It's impossible, like this, through the foundation we work on climate change, and this is a question I ask almost every scientist I come across. I ask him, is there a way to quickly grow a forest, right? And almost every time the guy laughs about it. And says, you can grow a tree very quickly, put steroids and stuff like that, but you cannot grow a forest because forest is an interconnected system, right? As in, a forest isn't a bunch of trees together, right? As in, there are so many interconnected things happening, and that takes time to build. And like even with Zerodha, like when I think about our business, it's not 12 years old. I started trading in the late 90s. So I think of Zerodha as like 20, 25-year-old business, and it's taken time to build. We got, this whole valuation, the money and all of that happening only in the last 3, 4, 5 years, so it took, 17, 18 years before we actually got there, right? So I think, if you come through the hard way here, you appreciate money a lot more. And if you get there very quickly, your tendency of appreciating what you have gotten is maybe lesser. And one of the big challenges, like in my head is like, how do I make sure my son doesn't take this for granted, right? Because, and I think he's almost unlucky to be born to me because, he's got a very high odds of, getting it very easy in life, right? And not being acknowledged through his life for whatever he does, because people will think he came from money and whatever, right? So I think that's it. I think if you've come through the hard way, it's and that money is not notional valuation money, and that money is can be there today and may not be there tomorrow. If you kind of had a bunch of those kind of like up and downs in your life, I think you'll be more grounded. Money doesn't affect you as much. But if you quickly see success, it's just not businesses. You can see celebrities, right? So many, like I don't know how many. Like I track the NBA, right? And so many basketball players, who went from zero to like a few $1 million and back to zero in like 4 or 5 years. And they couldn't, kind of handle the money because it was just made so quickly, and they didn't appreciate it as much. I think, like when I think about it, I think it's much harder to keep the money than to make the money. So like it's a different kind of skill set to be able to keep the money and not. Indians are generally better wired because we have saving, investing in our nature, but the newer generation is kind of changing a little as well. So yeah.
Nithin, is it okay to feel jealous of? Actually, feel happy that the startup ecosystem is going through downturn, because last 2 years I thought that मैं संन्यास ले लेती हूँ, विपासना इसीलिए चली गई, because everyone was becoming a unicorn and everyone was raising money, and suddenly you saw this kind of an arrogance seep in, right? And it was happening so fast. There were headlines 6 months, 4 months. I thought someone will not even started and there was a company that became a unicorn. What you're saying is that anything lasting, real, of value is going to take time.
Absolutely. I mean, I think valuation is just, is a wrong benchmark. I
Yeah.
think it's just, all of us give too much weightage to valuation. I mean, like I said, I personally think valuation is an obligation, because if you, as a business with no business, take money at $1 billion, I mean, I can't be the founder of such a company, because, it's just going to be so much pressure, right? Because now you've taken money from someone saying you're worth $1 billion without having a business. Like, how do you now prove that? How do you go build it, right? I mean, yeah, but it was strange times, and I don't think those times are coming back, very soon. But I personally think it's the right thing for the industry, because we are, Indian startup ecosystem is just like an 8-10-year-old industry, right? As in, it's important to see all kind of cycles up, down, and whenever there are excesses, it's going to hurt people, but it just builds, like people appreciate these cycles and etc. And yeah, so I think at the end of the day, you need to be able to build a business that that returns money on the money invested, right? As in, so there's positive cash flows, etc. So yeah, I think whatever we're seeing over the last 3-4 months in terms of startups trying to do whatever to reduce the burn and get to profitability is amazing, because that's how it should have always been. I don't think a lot of startups will get through this lull, because this winter is not going to be, it seems like it's not going to be, like a short-term thing. But yeah, but I think at the end of the day, once this all is through, there'll be more resiliency in the ecosystem, because people understand that, there are these cycles, and we shouldn't chase valuation. But the only qualm I have in all of this last 3-4 years of the startup ecosystem is, it's become so hard to, take the business from an idea to an MVP. Right? You need like a couple of $1 million just to be able to do that, right? And unless of course you are a technologist and you can, you're a programmer, you're also the CEO, and two, three of you guys get together and you build a business. But just the entry barrier has become so high that it's almost become very hard for anyone who's got an idea to say, what, let me try this out. And yeah, I mean, that's a problem, because, for this country to, kind of become wealthier, we need more entrepreneurship and more entrepreneurs. And this whole entry barrier going up just reduces the number of potential entrepreneurs in the future. So I hope all of that gets corrected, and, more people think about starting businesses and without having to raise money right at the start, like significant amount of money. Because if you raise $2-3 million, you're probably valued at $10 million. Now at $10 million, I mean, 10 million is 100 crore, almost 100 crore company. I mean, building a 100 crore company is really hard. And if you raise money at, at $10 million, say you raise $2-3 million, now you have to, you get into the treadmill where you have to now justify to your investors why you're worth $10 million, right? And then you have to keep optimizing for that valuation, right? And then, see, one of the things I realized, I think it's across, I think especially in financial services businesses, but even across, what is right for the investor is hardly ever right for the customer, right? I mean, like I keep thinking about it, like, if I have to make investor money, how do I do it also without compromising my customer interest, right? And if you're on the treadmill where you've promised so much, you've oversold your business so much to your investor, then you compromise on your customer's interest. And if you compromise on customer interest, then you need to constantly keep spending money to acquire customers, right? Because customer in today's networked world are very smart. I mean, they won't come to you organically if you're compromising on their interest, right? As in, so yeah, I mean, I think if I look back at Zerodha, I think this not raising capital at the start, we got extremely lucky, but through the journey, we had, especially the last 2 years, when all of this stupidity was happening, I mean, we got blank checks almost saying like, and they were like, dude, go buy a plane, go buy an island or whatever, So, and but we said no because I knew that, if I raise money at the bull market like peaks, to someone who doesn't even understand Indian markets well, how do I then have this obligation on me when the market turns around, right? Because, internally at Zerodha, we keep talking about it, like saying, dude, we are in a bull market top. If we have a 20-25% drawdown, our business will be down 40-50%. And there is nothing we can do to stop that from happening, right? And I think this whole stoicism is something very close to heart. So always constantly factoring in the worst case outcome. And then, kind of setting that as an expectation with everyone on the team, right? Because all your stakeholders, if they're oversold to an idea, the chance of disappointment increases. And if they're disappointed, the chance of your business doing well reduces, right? Because at the end of the day, your team is really what can make or break your business. So this whole stoicism, is very core to the way I think I operate, and also how we think of everything as. A lot of people think, like everything I say, they say, no, dude, you're very pessimistic. But I think I'm a rationally optimistic. So it's important to factor in that worst case outcome and set that expectation to everyone, right? Now that I'm constantly coming and saying our revenue can drop like 30-40% anytime, so tomorrow when it drops, no one is going to be in a shock, right? Because I know that if the market drops, we will drop. Like just to give an example, I was just seeing what happened yesterday. Like the U.S. markets, right? Robinhood was at $85 billion of market cap. Very similar company like us in the U.S. And I remember the interview of the founders, and they almost made it seem like it'll go to $200 billion, right? And now it's at $8.5 billion. And I had this whole conversation in the office saying, I don't know what these guys are smoking. They're listed, they've listed the company. Now, why do they have to keep overselling this, right? So it was weird time. So I hope all of that gets corrected.
I don't remember the quote exactly, but there's this thing, no, that in a world where constantly you're told to change and be someone else, just being yourself is the hardest job. And Nithin, you've stayed true, right? 12 years, 20 years, so many years. And Zerodha is not an overnight story, 1 year story, 2 years. And of course, you're getting all the attention in the last 2-3 years, of course. At the core of it, just remaining, being truly convinced and consistently being convinced with what you believe in without giving in to the pressure, and finding that balance to be just yourself. How do you do that? And especially I'm asking because I have been a victim to that, in the sense that, I have always had complex कि मैंने तो story भी कहा है कि unicorn, sunicorn, मैं तो baby corn और सबने कहा love corn, popcorn. And I've also been here for 13 years, and I have such a sense of failure last 2 years. I was like thinking, what am I doing, right? But having that consistent conviction is what all of us need. How do you do that?
I think I'm sold to the problem statement of Zerodha, like in a sense what we are trying to solve for as a business, and I think even the core team is sold to the idea, right? So this money valuation never was even before all of this happened, right? As in all the success happened over the last 3-4 years. We never really spoke about money, as in we never got up one day and said, no, we need to get this much revenue, or we need to get this much customer, right? As in the only discussion internally was, originally when we started Zerodha, the idea was how do we help traders do better? Then it became, how do we help investors and traders do better? And now it's become, how do you help people do better with their money, right? As in because at the core of it, the reason we exist is, people who use our platform need to kind of do better with the money, leveraging us in some way, right? And that is, I think, that, as long as the focus is that, and that money is a byproduct, as in saying that you do some of these things, money will potentially happen at some point of time, is how we've thought about this all the time. Now, did we get carried away? See, the thing is, we've had when we first raised, we valued ourselves internally, right? As in, so we had done like a ESOP we had given out ESOPs. The thing is, in 2017, as we had never hired anyone in the company promising an ESOP. But in 2017-18, we suddenly realized that, oh, we built a valuable business, and now we said we need to run, like an ESOP program, and then we ran an ESOP program. Now, our ESOPs are more RSU than ESOPs. But then once we did it, we were like, what is the value of this ESOP? But if we don't have an opportunity to, like participate in a buyback. So in 2020, when COVID happened, we said, it was around the time when families were, were in need of money. We said, let's do an ESOP buyback, and so we did it 15 times our profits. So which is, and the reason we did 15 times our profits as a valuation was because I thought that our business can grow 15% compounded long term, right? And so our ESOP buyback program has that as a policy, saying every year we're going to allocate 15% of our profits as a pool to buyback, and we will take 15, and we will multiply with whatever the profits into whatever the projected goal. So that number came to $1 billion, and I remember some of our competitors who probably 1/7, 1/8 the size, rising at $2 and $3 billion, and like internally we had this whole, like, dude, why is our company at 1 billion when others are who are smaller than us at higher valuation, and then this was communicated right through, saying all these valuations are whatever short-term valuations etc. is just is notional valuation. No one's getting liquidity at those valuations etc. So I think it's communicating well with your team. Second is a lot of people oversell to investors. They also oversell to their employees. I've been part of these interviews, where I've seen some of the startups where we've invested, hire some people, and while hiring that person, you've sold so many promises. You're solving for some global problem. You'll suddenly become $10 billion worth, etc. Right? I mean, you're setting people up with the wrong expectations. And then I've also seen a lot of founders. Once you've oversold a story, now you start believing in that oversold story, right? And then you have to continuously, keep like almost inventing a new story, and keep selling that story over and over and over again, and it just complicates life. I think, yeah. So I mean, I don't really know what's the right answer for that, but for yes, but I think this whole, like I said, this whole valuation is a benchmark to measure yourself. I think the media is slightly to be blamed as well, right? As in, because you almost ended up making it seem like...
I also don't like media at all, yeah.
Actually, I wasn't on social media till 2019-20, right? As in, so what happened was, 2011, I remember Economic Times broke an article on discount broking, and they mentioned us. And then I suddenly saw so much credibility, so much business go up. I spent almost like 6 or 7 years, I think every day I had 1 hour call with a journalist. Like, in the sense, some journalist or the other, right? Because in my head, I was like, if I can somehow get a feature, a quote, article, the credibility for the business goes up. Around 2017-18 is when we saw the power of the press waning, right? I mean, even if you had a full page coverage, like it didn't incrementally increase anything to the business. So I think people started dropping off from traditional media, and so I was kind of late to the social media party. And then, yeah, so in 2019-20s, I think when I started actively saying stuff on Twitter and LinkedIn and etc. So, trying to be in control of the narrative of sorts. Yeah, so, so that's been a different kind of a journey, so, but yeah.
Now that you're talking all things so authentic and original, and what we need and what we should be hearing actually, I want to ask you, now that you brought social media, suddenly I remember your photo, all six-pack abs and all that, this thing. And I was just wondering that most of us would have said कि हम क्यों नहीं थे Zerodha में वो जो 10 lakh challenge that you had, right, for being fittest and coolest and healthiest. Nithin, tell us about, and I want you to emphasize and tell us why we need to focus, because most of us will say बहुत busy है, बहुत stress है, बहुत काम है, deadline है, everything else is important, and we definitely need an excuse not to work out.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't work out. I mean, not everyone needs to work out, right? As in, but everyone needs to move, right?
Yeah.
Our body is meant to move. And I think we need to be conscious about what we eat, right? As in, it's not like I'm, like some perfect guy, right? I mean, I keep, every Monday I start a diet, and by Thursday evening, I'm craving for a biryani, and I have it on a Friday, So it's, but I'm conscious about what I consume and etc. I mean, see, the thing is, like, this goes back to the same point, right? As in, what are you optimizing for? Are you optimizing for the short term or for the long term, right? Now, if you think of your team as someone who's gonna be with you for the next 5, 10 years, you want your team to be healthy, right? I mean, you don't want them to be sick because, I mean, it's not good for them, but it's also not good for the business, right? Because now the problem is, everyone who, I think, thinks of next quarter, next half year, next year, right? When you're optimizing for the next quarter, you want to juice the max out of this guy for the next quarter, right? Because, that's what's going to probably help you grow the business very quickly in the short run, right? So it's a hard decision, I mean, to take. So I think more than the, this whole 10 lakh rupee, whatever we were running, I think the better decision that we have taken at Zerodha is to kill all work at 6 p.m. every day, right? And no chats on the weekends. Because, to be physically healthy, I think the starting point is being mentally healthy, right? You need to be, you need to have your personal time to be able to do this. And I think we should have done this much before, 2020, because I also had this habit of, randomly at 9:30 in the night or 10 or 11, we have this like a core team, like like 70, 80 people on it, like a chat. I have this business idea, I'll ping. And, as soon as I ping, there'll be suddenly a lot of activity, right? So, and then I was like, there was a realization at some point in time, if I'm doing it, maybe the other managers are also doing it, right? That means the whole team is constantly wired thinking, my boss could potentially be pinging on this chat group. So, I need to be, like present all the time, right? And so if you were trying to optimize, if I was trying to optimize the business for next 6 months, next 1 year, or next quarter, maybe, all of these things would be required. But because I'm thinking, and as Zerodha, we've always thought, like everyone on the team is, I'm thinking next 5, 10 years. It was, it's just the decisions you take kind of changes. I think the problem with, all these health challenges we started with COVID, because we decided to go work from home, and we realized that people stopped moving as much as they were moving, and we also said we're going to be permanent work from home. So most of our team today is, is kind of outside Bangalore and in different cities working from home. Just the core team, the 100, 150 people, we've said hang around Bangalore. So we needed a way to get people to move, right? As in some like a reminder to move. So the first year, this is the third challenge we are running. The first year, it was a very simple one. Anyone could set any health target. Someone said, I want to do 100 push-ups at a time. Someone said, I want to walk for 10 kilometers at a time. So they set a target, and then if they met the target at the end of the time period, they got like a 1 month salary bonus, and then we had a lottery ticket of 10 lakh rupees, right? This whole lottery ticket, the potential, like a large outcome, gets a lot of behavior shifts of sorts, and the second edition, I think, I got trolled quite a bit for this, which was, we did it around BMI.
Which one?
We said BMI, so we said anyone less than 25 BMI, we will give you a month's salary, and if our team's BMI is less than 25, everyone gets another month's salary, So it's, but I think this BMI, I don't think India cares about it, but the day I shared this on social media, I think when Europe opened, this whole body shaming, etc., is a big thing, right? As in, and oh my, there was a lot of fire on that day. So the third challenge now is, so we have activity goals set for everyone. So everyone's using an activity tracker, and we have said, you burn between 350 to 400 calories minimum, and if you can do it 90% of the days over the next year, you get a bonus and that same lottery ticket. So. I think it's a very interesting experiment, and it's an interesting way to get people move, and also let them know that what the business cares about their health, right? Which is, I think, at the end of the day, which is really what's important, right? As in saying that the business cares about me, and I think one of the things I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs not focus on is that how your money compounds with time, people's skill sets compound with time as well, right? As in today, in Bangalore, the average age of an employee, that is between 2 to 3 years, right? Every 2 to 3 years, someone's quitting the job and shifting. But 2 to 3 years is really, like when I look at Zerodha and our data points, 2 to 3 years is where a guy starts blossoming. Like, a person who's joined, he starts blossoming. And now today, you have a problem that when he's blossoming, you're losing him to someone else, right? So at Zerodha, I mean, the core team, the average age is like, they spent at least 7 years with us, right? The tech team, everyone spent all their careers with us almost, So, and these guys have just grown phenomenally, as in like, people who are just so raw when they joined us. In 2 years, 3 years, they're just doing all this fancy, crazy stuff, and none of them from pedigree education. I mean, this is not that we hired from IIT, IIM, and somehow they had the skills. These were just raw, guys with the right attitude to life, and they just blossomed. So I think, if you think business long term, I think you need to find, people who come to you for money, I think go away for more money, right? As in, so it's, so you cannot entice, people to work for you just for the money. And like this health initiative is one amongst many things that we do as a business, for everyone on the team to know that we care about, them holistically and not just in terms of their contribution to the business.
I think you are best placed today to answer this. Is whenever we have conferences and conversations, we always talk about what's good. And to me, I'm just saying that I just feel, I wouldn't say for startup India, but for young India, to me, you're an original thinker and builder and doing it in a very, your way rather than any other way. But I want to ask you, the position that you're in, you can say this, what are some of the mistakes that you've made? What are some of the failings? Because we don't talk about failures, right? What are some of the things you failed at and then you course-corrected or then you worked on yourself? If you could share with us.
I mean, like, see, the biggest thing, I was very aggressive. I know, if you had seen me, like, when I was 17 to 20, 21, I was an extremely aggressive guy and trying to make money very quickly. And so I blew up. I worked in a call center for 3-4 years. And, I think I learned most of my life lessons, in that period. As Zerodha, I think, I keep thinking about this, as in I keep thinking that if I keep getting asked this question also, which is, if you can go back in time, what would you correct? I've just been so lucky so many times in this journey. I've been at the right place like a zillion times. I just fear that if I course corrected anything, if I change anything, there's many mistakes made, right? As in, if I change any mistake, probably the outcome would not be where I am today, right? Because, maybe all the other happenstances that happened after that wouldn't have happened, if I had, somehow made change to my life, so, but broadly speaking, I think, when business started, I also came from the school of thought that, throwing people at problems solves problems, right? As in, and then, Kailash joined us in 2013, and he had exactly the opposite philosophies, which was around, more people complicate the problem, right? And I become more like him now than, over the last 8-9 years together. Like, when we think about, when you talk about Zerodha, the reason for the profitability is, like I'll just give you an example. So when we were at 1 million customers, we were at 1,100 people on the team. We are at 11 million customers and we are 1,100 members on the team, right? So in a sense, we didn't have to add people to solve for this problem, right? But I've seen some of our competitors in the same period going 3x, 4x, like we're talking Robinhood, right? I mean, they went from 400 people on the team to 4,000 people on the team in the same period, in the last 2-3 years, right? So, I think I started my life thinking, suddenly having a lot of people will solve for problems, which I didn't. I think the second thing, which I did at the start was, I thought I'm like this, like everyone started saying fintech and all that, because when we started the business, we were broking, in my head, I was financial services, but by 2014, 15, when we put out a product, people said fintech, etc., right? So I somehow, I think started getting influenced that, somehow I can contribute to tech. So I used to try to be in the decision-making process with the tech team, etc. And me and Kay had this conversation once, and I was like, yeah, it absolutely makes sense. And I probably keep bouncing the team between different ideas and different solutions. when I really don't have the core competency to be able to do it. Right? I think one of the things that we did well at Zerodha from 2015 onwards is we've kept tech in a silo, as in the business has no influence on tech. Right? As in we get together and we come up with saying this is something that we'll work on. But how you want to solve for it, we trust you as a tech team. You go and solve for it, right? And so the fact that the tech team can work in a silo with all the independence and all the experimentation they can do is, and no pressure on the tech team from the business side, has just improved the efficiency of the tech team significantly. I mean, like for all of you who don't know, we are a 36-member tech team, right? I mean, and if you pick up any business which is very similar to ours in size, is probably at least 10x in terms of tech size, tech team. I mean, someone was saying, one of our broking friends in the US, I mean, has like 1,000 engineers and, much smaller than us in size. And I'm like, whatever, so, and, so I think, if I look back in this journey, the mistake I did was getting carried away that I can somehow, as a non-tech guy, I started understanding a little bit of tech. And somehow I started thinking, just now that I understand, I can somehow contribute, and so just staying away from tech was probably one of the smart things I did, and it kind of has paid off well as well, and I see that happen quite a bit, I mean, I see a lot of non-tech folks interfering with tech, I mean, especially in traditional business. I mean, you go to banks, etc., right? I mean, the number of times people say AI, ML, I mean, blockchain. I'm like, without having any clue on what it is, right? As in, it's like, so I think that's probably the biggest course correction which has had the best outcome, for the business.
Nithin, I want to ask you. You said you use word our competitors. Do you ever worry about competitors? Someone like you.
See, thing is,
give an honest answer, because I just don't think you would say, "What are they smoking?" Right? And you wouldn't bother.
I mean,
or do you think about competition?
We are, I mean, like a lot of people think to be competitive you need to be aggressive. Like you play a sport with me, you play soccer, you play basketball, whatever, right? I mean, I will give all, right? But I'm not going to be aggressive. I'm not going to beat someone up, right?
Yeah.
And how I run the business is exactly the same way, right? I might be timid and whatever, right? But I still want to do well as a business, I mean, not for the money, right? As in that's secondary, right? As in I still want to, I mean, us to have a distance on our competition in terms of a product, in terms of initiative, etc. So, I mean, that competitiveness has to be there in a founder. Otherwise, I think, life will get very boring. If I've said, what, there's no competition, everything is okay in life, what do I get up tomorrow morning and do, right? As in, so I think the competitiveness is a way to get, stay wired. But I think, in terms of product, etc., eventually, people will probably catch up, right? As in, I hope they don't, but my guess is that at some point of time, someone will catch up in terms of product. And but in terms of philosophy, I think it's very hard to catch up, right? And what Zerodha today, the differentiator is just not the products and initiatives, but it's really the philosophy behind Zerodha, and that, I think, is really hard to catch up, because for a lot of these businesses to reach a level where they can be competition to us, they would have had to raise a lot of money. And once they have raised a lot of money, it's very hard for them to do what we do, right? And like just to give an example, I mean, this whole, I said about this in the social media as well, which is, in the last year, we've sent 12 push notifications to our customer, right? That's one a month, and we debate internally, right? I mean, there are so many times we have fights on, if something should be sent or not, right? And the reason for that is because I find push notification annoying, and I'm saying I will not want to send a push notification to a customer when I find it extremely annoying, right? And it's very hard for a competitor to be like that, right? Because I know competitors send 10 push notifications a day, right? As in, and things like, I know that if I send a stock tip on the trading platform, it'll generate revenue, right? But if I can't send one stock tip to all our customers, because every customer is different, his risk appetite is different. So there is no one advice that can work for all, right? But every broker out there, I don't know how they do it. I mean, they just randomly say buy Reliance, it market's going up, buy this. Yeah. I mean, philosophically, I know that they will never ever be able to catch up with us. And I think with Zerodha, like a lot of people give us success. They say we are successful because of our profits, etc. But I think we are successful because, our customer assets today at Zerodha is around 2.5 lakh crores. right? That is, that's how many, all these 11 million customers together have 2.5 lakh crores worth of securities lying in their demat account with us. So the trust that is built there, is immense. I don't think any other company anywhere has been able to, build that much trust over time. And when you ask me, what am I most proud about Zerodha, it's the fact that we've been able to build a brand where people trust us, with that much, and yeah.
You guys can clap properly also. Sure, I have to say this, Nithin. I have rapid fire, but before that, I just want to put this because we are having a conversation and all of us are having a conversation. Last 13 years, one of the things that we always look up to, I look up to, and when we think about, who are these amazing Airbnb founder, Stripe founder, Spotify, and of course, Steve Jobs, legendary and everything. But I just want to tell each one of us and to myself and remind, and you are a reminder of, extraordinary story from our own country for the world. Like today, one of the things that you picked, I am picking it up, that out of India, you built a phenomenal business where the tech team is so small, right? And WhatsApp, I don't know if all of you have heard, but one of the stories was WhatsApp story, that it was built by 2 people, 3 people, and it went on to become the most iconic product. I think when we talk about Zerodha from India, a product built here in Bengaluru, and with such small number of people. And I think that's a very phenomenal story that we could, you give us a reference point that when we go to Silicon Valley, we'll say we have a Zerodha in India, right? Rather than saying we have Google, Facebook, and I don't know what. And then I think that is the biggest thing that you're doing. Besides building Zerodha, besides building your own life journey, that's what you're doing for the ecosystem for all of us, right? Because we have a reference in you, and I think you should be very genuinely proud, right?
I mean, but that's also an obligation right now. It's
No, I think you'll carry that very well and very responsibly. With that, let me just quickly do this rapid fire. I'll tell you a word, and you have to tell me whatever comes to your mind first. If I say entrepreneurship.
Bjorn Chouinard, Patagonia.
Huh?
Bjorn Chouinard, the guy who built Patagonia and who gave it away. So, yeah.
Money.
Freedom.
Purpose.
Help people do better with their money.
Failure.
I mean, I've been
It
wanting,
hasn't happened to me.
I mean, no, not that. I mean, I have many, but I'm trying to think. I've always wanted to be sub 15% body fat, and I've not been able to get there.
Rejection.
No, I can't come up with anything.
Pain.
Okay, I'm actually screwing this up, isn't it? I mean, with this.
No, that's okay. There's no gift hamper, so it's okay. Dream.
Yeah, dream is. In my head, it's the Rain Matter Foundation. That's essentially what we're doing right now is really what keeps me awake in the night.
Balance.
Music.
Okay. India.
Entrepreneurship.
Nithin, really, I don't want you to have any obligation, but for this generation of entrepreneurs and the people who would be in places where I come from, Bihar, UP, not in Bangalore even, you are today someone that we look up to. And thank you for doing it originally in your way, staying so true, so honest, and so real. And what I like most about you, and this is for all of you who will go on to become billionaires and unicorns, is your humility. We want more like you. So thank you for making all of us proud and being the spark for our country.
Thanks
Thank
a
you.
lot.